The row around the Partygate scandal in the UK deepens. The Cabinet Office has now warned of legal action to prevent the handing over of Boris Johnson's WhatsApp messages and diary entries to the COVID inquiry panel. Well, British officials are preparing the response to the inquiry chairman. Earlier, the UK government was given a deadline to present the required messages and diary entries, and the ultimatum ends later on today. However, Downing Street sources claim the UK government will likely resist the demand. The required material is linked to the former Prime Minister's tenure at number 10. The chairman of the panel, Heather Hallett, has demanded the full details of these WhatsApp messages and diaries. She wants them handed over before the inquiry panel enters into public evidence sessions related to the parties held at Downing Street during lockdown. Well, the lawyers representing the UK Cabinet Office says the COVID inquiry panel does not have enough power to demand Johnson's WhatsApp chats and entries. Well, this comes before an expected meeting between the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Johnson. The meeting will take place later on this week. This will also give Johnson an opportunity to present his side before Sunak. Meanwhile, the political struggle for the Conservative Party is deteriorating as well. Several property developers have backed the Tories for many elections with millions of pounds. Well, they're now considering holding back their funding. Many of them believe the Tory government is blocking house building activity. Over a 10-year period, around 1/5 of Tory donations came from housing developers and builders. The developers, they've accused Tory MPs of being selfish. Well, last year, the government even rejected house building targets to avoid a Conservative rebellion. On the electoral side, the situation is said to have been sluggish. A new poll by think tank Onward suggests nearly 2/3 of millennials have shown their distrust in the Conservative Party, with many saying the ruling party deserves to lose the next election. Well, people aged between 25 and 40 believe the Tories are dishonest, incompetent, and out of touch. Well, for more on this particular story, we have a guest with us just now, Renaud Faucon, political analyst and senior lecturer at Lancaster University. A very good day to you, Renaud. So what do you make of this story?
I think it's very interesting because it's all about where does your conversation are private or not. And there's been a lot of debate about that in the US, in the European Union with the text of the European Commission, and now in the UK, first with Matt Hancock and then Boris Johnson. It's the idea that those people have done business that was for the government on WhatsApp, but at the same time, they were sharing little jokes, the kind of banter that they would do behind closed doors in normal time. And the fact that those WhatsApp are requested is in line with the tradition of transparency in the UK, that everything that is government business should be available for those commissions. But at the same time, if those WhatsApps are shared, it's going to be very destructive, not only for Boris Johnson, but also for all the senior politicians who share those little jokes with him. We've seen with Matt Hancock, there were a lot of public texts all over the media of him sharing jokes about teaching unions being lazy or things like that. So this is a very tense moment, because if they refuse the transparency, it means that this is really a first in the UK. They would not share the document. They would not allow the Commission to have a full view on what happened. But if they accept it, it means that we go full tabloid. And I think this is something next generations of politicians will learn to do much better, which is to separate private business and public business.
Yeah, I think in the future, politicians might steer clear of WhatsApp because you never quite know who's reading or watching or who might request them in the future. Just moving away from the privacy of the WhatsApps for a moment and just on the Partygate issue, do you think the British public have had enough of Partygate scandals, or do you think that someone needs to be held accountable?
Well, I think the problem is that there is still a strong loyalty in the Conservative Party by a large share of the party for Boris Johnson. I think the British public would like to get away with that and stop talking about it. But it's also very difficult to have someone like Johnson who over and over again this time got taxpayer-funded lawyers who were building his defense against the very obvious claim that he had lied to Parliament about the parties. Those people found new parties, new people coming to his house, and every time the strategy is to accuse some form of deep state, of a conspiracy against Boris Johnson, but it doesn't fit with the rest of the agenda of the Conservative Party. Rishi Sunak has clearly moved on. When people see Sunak on TV, they don't think Partygate. They think about this businessman, they might like him, they might not like him, but he's completely out of that story. But every time Johnson comes back to the front, it's again and again stories about lies, about the parties, about corruption, and this is very damaging for the brand of the Conservative Party. But I'm afraid Sunak doesn't know how to navigate that because he still needs the support of those Johnson loyalists.
Well, indeed, because Boris is still very popular in certain circles, isn't he? Renaud, thank you so very much indeed. We could talk about this all day, couldn't we? But thank you for your time. That's Renaud Foucault there, political analyst and senior lecturer at Lancaster University. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.